So this is from Living on the Edge, Building Cohesion and the Will to Win by Robert W. Madden, a chapter from Leadership, the Warrior's Art, edited by Christopher Kolenda. Clausewitz stated that the true military spirit can be created only in war. Discipline, skill, goodwill, a certain pride, and high morale are the attributes of an army trained in times of peace. These command respect, but they are fragile in war and have no strength on their own. He advised that we should be careful not to confuse the real spirit of an army with its mood. Further, he embellished, no general can accustom an army to war. Peacetime maneuvers are a feeble substitute for the real thing. Though he stated that the military spirit can only be created in war, Clausewitz conceded that it may endure for several generations, even under leaders of average ability and through long periods of peace. In other words, military leaders must capitalize on traditions and lessons of the past to maintain spirit in the present. Military spirit springs from two interactive sources: a series of victorious wars and frequent exertions of the army to the utmost limits of its strength. Nothing else, according to Clausewitz, will show a soldier the full extent of his capacities. The more a general is accustomed to place heavy demands on his soldiers and subordinate leaders, the more he can depend on their response. Clausewitz identified danger, physical exertion, intelligence, and friction as the elements that form the abrasive nature of war. Only one lubricant exists to reduce the abrasion: combat experience. If we accept this assertion as true, then it raises a significant issue. If we cannot realistically duplicate the elements of danger in peacetime training, what mitigates the psychological impact of combat for inexperienced troops? Clausewitz's concept of training focuses on preparing the army to endure great hardships. As war is the realm of exertion and suffering, he states that these alone will defeat us unless we can make ourselves indifferent to them. Indifference by birth or by training provides a certain strength of body and soul. He strongly believed that exertions must be practiced in peacetime to prepare the mind even more than the body. Habit hardens the body for exertions and trains soldiers and leaders to deal calmly with adversity. Finally, he believed that friction must be incorporated into training to exercise the officer's judgment, common sense, and resolve. Clausewitz clearly understood the value of the individual soldier to unit effectiveness. An army's military qualities, he wrote, are based on the individual who is steeped in the spirit and essence of this activity, who trains the capacities it demands, rouses them and makes them his own, who applies his intelligence to every detail, who gains ease and confidence through practice, and who completely immerses his personality in the appointed tasks. Thus, according to Clausewitz, tough realistic training, which closely simulates the stresses of combat, serves to mitigate the psychological impact. The effects of battle on the individual soldier became a career-long study of French military theorist Colonel Ardent Dupic. Writing prior to the Franco-Prussian War, his work, Battle Studies, reflected the insights of a soldier who had experienced firsthand the demands of war. Dupic pointed out that while all other circumstances change with time, the human element remains the same, capable of finite levels of endurance, fear, sacrifice, effort, and no more. He recognized that the increased lethality on the battlefield resulted in greater dispersion, which in turn hindered supervision. Decisions now were gained by action in open order, where each soldier was expected to act individually with will and initiative to attack the enemy and destroy him. Additionally, the soldiers seemed to fight alone in the smoke, dispersion, and confusion of battle. Unity was no longer assured by mutual surveillance. He believed these conditions created a greater need for cohesion than ever before. Dupic's concept of cohesion is best illustrated by this analogy. Four brave men who do not know each other will not dare to attack a lion. Four less brave, but knowing each other well, sure of their reliability, and consequently of mutual aid, will attack resolutely. This unity and confidence springs from mutual trust, which is fostered by disciplined orders, living together, obeying the same leaders, and shared experiences of fatigue and hardship. Mutual trust also develops from the cooperation among men who quickly understand one another in stressful situations. It is that intimate confidence, firm and conscious, which does not forget itself in the heat of action and which alone makes true combatants. Perhaps Dupic's legacy is his recognition that unit effectiveness is enhanced within an organization which will establish cohesion by the mutual acquaintanceship of all. That is a knowledge of comrades, a trust in officers providing visible leadership, a sense of duty, discipline, and pride. This sustains the soldier in combat and prevents fear from becoming terror. His concept of discipline bears further elaboration. Dupic stated that the purpose of discipline is to make men fight in spite of themselves. He acknowledged that the customs of a democratic society did not permit draconian discipline, whereby soldiers advanced forward in battle because of the fear of death from behind if they fell back. Other techniques had to be applied in order to instill discipline. He believed that the cohesion resulting from the mutual trust among men and officers is what creates discipline. Today, why should not the men in our companies watch discipline and punish themselves? They alone know each other, and the maintenance of discipline is so much to their interest as to encourage them to stop skulking. He also pointed out that as wars become shorter and more violent, cohesion must be created in advance. Almost a century later, S.L.A. Marshall echoed the views of Dupic. Increased lethality and battlefield dispersion had reached new proportions during World War II, and his interviews with soldiers fresh from front lines reaffirmed Dupic's insights on the necessity of mutual trust. Marshall also argued for the value of instilling unit cohesion during peacetime. It is from the acquiring of the habit of working with the group and of feeling responsible to the group that his thoughts are apt to turn ultimately to the welfare of the group when tactical disintegration threatens in battle. The landmark study by Samuel Stauffer and others, The American Soldier, offered extensive insights into the social psychology of World War II soldiers. They concluded that the primary or informal group served two principal functions in combat motivation. It set and enforced group standards of behavior, and it supported and sustained the individual in stresses he would otherwise not have been able to withstand. The various theories regarding the moral domain of battle have greatly influenced American doctrine. The architects of U.S. Army doctrine acknowledged Patton's admonition, "Wars are fought by men, not machines." The human dimension of war will be decisive in the campaigns and battles of the future, just as the past. The U.S. Army recognizes that the increased lethality of modern battle requires the dispersion of forces. This in turn requires a command and control system that emphasizes decentralized execution within the framework of a commander's intent. Units will find themselves isolated on the future battlefield, which will place a premium on sound leadership, competent and courageous soldiers, and cohesive, well-trained units. U.S. Army doctrine is based on certain key assumptions. First, the concept of decentralized execution is predicated on Anthony Kellett's assertion that on the battlefield, self-discipline plays a much greater role in modern combat than discipline imposed from without. It assumes that the individuals composing the primary group and formal unit structure will, in the absence of higher authority, actively seek to defeat the enemy. Individuals will pursue a course of action contrary to human nature, forsaking relative safety and comfort to risk their lives and actively seeking to engage and destroy the enemy. It supposes that soldiers and leaders have so internalized their concepts of discipline and will to fight that their actions in the face of the enemy will conform to the expectations of doctrine. As Lord Morgan argues, discipline, control from without, can only be relaxed safely when it is replaced by something higher and better, control from within. Many of the motivations that influence soldiers in battle clearly have peacetime roots.